What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Essential Scares podcast, the only show that dares to ask the question, is it essential? I am your host, Corbin, and with me today, as always, is Bobby.
Why did you say it differently this time?
And Alan.
I like that. Good evening.
Hey, I'm just, I'm hyping up, I'm getting the momentum going, I mean, if you can't
That's
handle
true.
me at my loudest, then you don't deserve me at my quietest, right? Isn't that?
I don't
fair.
think that's how that saying goes.
It is. No, that's exactly how it goes.
Oh,
You can
okay.
look it up.
Yeah.
Sun Tzu said that.
Oh, yes.
We have got a great show for you today. We are continuing our romp through the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise with the quintessential, the famous A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors. But before we get into it, Bobby has a spoiler warning.
I do. This will serve as your first, one, and only spoiler warning for A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors. If you do not want A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 spoiled for you, please skip to the time code provided in our show notes or description for our essential spoiler-free discussion. Now, last week, we watched Shocker. And dare be us to deny the fans another promise. And Corbin, what's your review of Shocker as well as Essentiality score?
Yeah. So dare be it, dare be me, actually, to do the one thing perhaps that I, if I wasn't most famous for it, you could write it down on the list of things I'm most famous for. And that is breaking promises to fans. You see, guys, I didn't watch Shocker.
He looked him right
and
in the eyes when he said it.
I wanted to watch Shocker, right? But I simply ran out of time. I barely watched Dream Warriors in time.
Well, you heard it here, folks. Corbin sucks. Alan.
That's right. That's right. There you go.
That's
however,
sucks.
I'll try and watch it next week.
Okay. We'll revisit this topic.
Fun fact, it's going to be the spoiler warning until you give us something.
I hope it is. I'll keep not watching it just to make Bobby's job a little bit easier.
That's very generous of you.
Yeah.
I'm a man of my people.
Oh. So Dream Warriors. This
Why'd you
is
say
a
it like
movie because I don't know.
See?
You just got to let out your inner 80s rock star when you say the title of this film. Is the Nightmare on Elm Street film you think of when you think of A Nightmare on Elm Street? This is where everything kind of coalesces. You've got your Freddy calling people bitch. He's got great, terrible jokes. There's kills that are inventive and weird and dreamy. But it all starts with one fateful evening where a girl is dry scooping coffee with Diet Coke, which is the most disgusting thing I've seen in a while, just to stay awake to avoid the reoccurring nightmares of Freddy that she has had. And of course, that doesn't work out, and she wakes up with her wrist being slit, so she ends up in a mental institution where, lo and behold, there's a bunch of other kids that are having the exact same nightmares, and who comes to save the day? But Nancy, the girl who made it through, to come back and save the day and then figure everything out and kill Freddy by being Dream Warriors. And let's just open it from there, because this film is fucking wild. I had a blast. I watched this on Good Friday. It was a great time watching this film. Absolutely balls to the wall in every way I wanted it to be.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough to add too much to it. I mean, I said it, and then you said it. This is like the Nightmare on Elm Street movie, outside of the original. Like, this is the one that, I don't know if jumped is the right word, launched itself over the shark, maybe is the right word. Leapt gracefully over the shark. That's also a good one. It's the one that really pushed the franchise over the ledge of being like, a relatively serious, franchise, where Freddy kind of stood out with hints of, macabre humor, into just being like absolutely insane. And I love that for the franchise. Dream Warriors is just like, it's iconic, I think.
Iconic it is.
Yeah.
I remember liking it more.
Bobby, that's why Bobby made a big face when I said, I forget what word I used already, but in the opener, he doesn't agree. He doesn't agree. You heard it here first.
I can't understand this.
I don't quite fully get it myself, because I really remember really loving. I mean, I've talked about it in Shocker. I've talked about it in 2. I even talked about it way back in episode 17 in the original Nightmare. Dream Warriors, and I've done the Dream Warrior like a bunch. Like, I don't know where it missed me this time, but it did. It
Bobby's
missed me a little bit.
Bobby's tastes have changed. You heard it here first. Bobby's favorite Nightmare movie is going to be Nightmare 2, Freddy's Revenge. I can already see that being the truth looking ahead at the franchise. And I don't know how I feel about that.
I like New Nightmare.
You already... I don't know. Maybe. And I'm thinking back to, maybe Bobby doesn't, and I didn't listen last week, for the record, so I don't know how Bobby felt about Shocker. But maybe Bobby doesn't love Wes Craven.
Oh, you mean, nope, incorrect.
Take.
Yeah. So spoiler alert for last episode. Me and Alan decided that Shocker was genius. Unironically, we made the call that Shocker was genius. It is Wes Craven's commentary on the Nightmare on Elm Street films, and I think watching this after Shocker did have a impact on me, because very clearly I would have to imagine Wes Craven doesn't like this movie.
He wrote this movie.
Yeah. But I would imagine he takes issues with where this movie went, because obviously in Shocker he took issues with where this movie went, because Shocker's very much like, let's just make this fucking ridiculous. So
yeah, but when did Shocker come out?
Same year. Yeah, we did this last week. This has all been done last week. Yeah.
I would be very surprised to find out that Wes Craven didn't like Dream Warriors. I'd be very surprised.
I mean, he's gone now. R.I.P. to a real one. But yes, This movie's bonkers, right?
Yeah.
And this movie exudes 80s style, I guess. I don't know, man.
So, what didn't you like about it? I guess what didn't hit?
The lore, because the lore dumpiness of it. This movie has so much more lore dump than the other ones, where it's oh yes, he was born of 1,000 or 100 psychopaths and one.
Yeah, but none of the lore dumps are particularly long. They're just gonna give you everything,
and they drop
you need to know just real quick.
They drop the Freddy Krueger only. The first 2 movies actually have a good through line, right? Freddy Krueger is only as strong as you believe him to be strong, right? Mm-hmm. That's super cool. I like that, right? But now in this one, for some reason, it has to be about burying him in hollow ground and having the power of the Dream Warrior, which again, great, fantastic, very fun and goofy, but also I don't know. It's just okay, duh, whatever. And this movie has a bunch of really iconic kills, but also they just don't hit. Maybe they just maybe part of it is because
what part of Freddy chopping a kid up and puppet mastering him throughout the halls doesn't hit?
I don't
genuinely.
In all honesty, I can't tell. I can't tell you. I can't tell you. It just
Bobby.
didn't hit for me this time.
I think that this movie feels like the more proper sequel to the original than Nightmare 2. And like I think that the through line from 1 to 3 is very straightforward, especially the story, because like the second movie,
it's the Elm Street kids. It's the last.
It's the Elm Street kids, exactly. Like the second movie, I actually think has problems with its continuity, and the third movie, I don't feel that at all. Like, you even though they never talk about Freddy gaining strength, as people believe in him or whatever, like you do see that, as he kills more people, he's gaining power, and that people are afraid of him, and he's able to, go to the real world into his skeleton, and like I think that this movie puts the second movie in a little bit of an awkward place canonically, which is a feeling that I remember having. But
maybe that's my problem. Maybe that's part of my problem. It's like I like.
I don't think the second. I like the second movie, but I don't think it's better than this movie. Spoilers for the score, but
I don't. I don't know. It's weird to like. I got this really weird sense in this movie that I didn't have in 2, and I definitely didn't have it in 1. But like, there's like a weird paper thinness to Dream Warriors, where it's like it's very cool, right? There's a lot of like, obviously, right? It's essentially like my background, where it's all like ooh, flair and fun and yada yada yada, but like much like my commentary, lacks a lot of substance, right?
I mean, I agree that the second movie has more layers to it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the third movie is very straightforward, right? It's falls into that late 80s slasher trap in a way of like, if you're still making a franchise at that point, I mean, you had to just like amp it up, like slasher season was basically over.
Yeah.
And if you're still making slashers, like, they had to be a reason. This is like the death of the slasher was these last few years. Those last few years, late 80s, early 90s. And, is that true for 3 versus 2? Like, yeah, absolutely it is. Absolutely it is.
No.
And, I think that there's a reason why Wes Craven didn't want to make a Nightmare sequel in the first place. And I think that that's fair, but I mean, the reality also is that Nightmare 2 is part of the reason why he wanted to write this one. And even though it's thinner than the second one, it's still, I guess, you could say it has some commentary on, mental health or, whatnot, but
well, yeah, believing
it
people.
Is, yeah, like it is just cooler than the second one. And like,
yes.
I think, for this kind of movie, like I'm okay with that. That is enough for me.
And ultimately, I agree with you, but I do think, like, yes, this movie is very cool, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's fun, and I didn't disenjoy the watch, right? But like, I think part of my issue, in just all sincerity, is I think you're right. I like deeper movies at this point in my life. Like if I watch a horror movie a week, if not more than that, right? Like just strictly for this podcast, I watch at least one horror movie a week, right? And in all honesty, this movie, like, it felt very like it just felt shallow to me, and like I mean, me and Corbett are agreeing on this, but like it's just very fun. It's colorful, it's interesting, but like the one cool thing that this movie does do, and I mean this entirely, is Kincaid just makes it out, right? Like that's really fun, right? But like a bunch of characters die and just die very quickly, and like half of the characters who die in the second half die very, very shallow. It's the same issue that we had with Nightmare 2, right? But we don't have all of this like interesting subtext underneath it, where it's just like the second half of the movie is like relatively bloodless. and it's just like, in comparison, like the first half, right? Like fucking the welcome to prime time, bitch. I mean, iconic, great moment, right? But like, the nerd and the punk chick, they both just get like eeked, like essentially, like.
I don't know that I hate that though, because like whereas with 2, Freddy kind of just shows up at a party and kills people. Freddy's been haunting these kids for months. They've been dealing with this. So for them to confront him and then fail, it works for me. Like,
but hear me out on this. Hear me out on this, right? Every kill in Nightmare 1 is super fucking cool. Every time somebody dies in Nightmare 1, it's super fucking cool. Nightmare 2 isn't about the kills, it's a possession story. So it is very much about Jesse, I think his name was.
that's
like becoming Freddy. Nightmare 3, very much to Corbin's point, is again about Freddy Krueger coming into your dreams and fucking murking you, right? And the fact that half of those kills are iconic, and the other half of those kills you just don't remember because they're boring.
Yeah,
right.
But I mean, I think that's true for most slashers. Like, I think most slashers, like every kill is an iconic. You know, I mean, for every time Jason like slammed somebody's face straight through the metal wall of an RV, there was a kill that like he just brings the machete down off screen and blood splatters on a tree. You know, like, and that I think that's just how it is, right? And not every kill can be, top tier, and that's even why you've seen certain slashers, I think, be really popular, especially like more in the modern day, like Terrifier, right? Like, because like every kill like just goes
has
for
to
it.
Be
yeah. And not every kill in Nightmare 3 is iconic. That's absolutely true. Like when he kills Nancy's dad, it's like whatever.
Yeah.
But
when
even...
Will becomes the wizard master, it's like
what a fucking nerd.
Yeah.
So goofy.
That was all I could think of. I am the wizard master.
Yeah.
Okay, buddy.
And like, the heroin kill, I think that was that they were trying to say a little bit more. It had like rape subtext and like it's a drug use thing, and like I think that one was more than the kill, but they still even tried to like push it a little bit with like the trypophobia right beforehand, and
that's
like,
what I was about to say. That kill feels more like horror,
and like, yeah. So I think that the kills that you remember in this movie like supersede the ones that you don't, and I think that they are more numerous than the ones that you don't, because I think there are more iconic kills in this movie than regular kills.
So we named 3.
Kills. The marionette,
two iconic kills.
What are the 2 that you're thinking of?
The marionette and Welcome to Primetime, bitch.
Yeah, I mean those are like the 2 that really stand out. Obviously,
when
he's like eating her, that's one. She doesn't die, but that's like
it's
a kill moment basically.
But I can't tell if it's an iconic moment because doesn't it get? I can't. That's a spoiler for next week. I'm pretty sure.
Yes. So yes, the more iconic version is in next week's episode. But I think that this one is the one that people are more likely to remember, even though like the follow through happens later. But
I agree with you. But part of my issue is I feel like there are people like me out there. I don't know if it's everybody or just most of us who have watched all of the Nightmare movies and have put all of the good moments, even in the bad ones, into Dream Warriors. And they're like, yeah, because Dream Warriors was so cool, right? Because if you watch it the first time, right, Dream Warriors is it's more of what you want, right? Like, because like again, we as a nation were not ready for Nightmare 2 until like maybe 2017. Just straight up, like we as a nation were far too homophobic up until that point. Now Nightmare 2 is like it's got a renaissance, right? So like you remember it when anybody who is like our age, that is like 30 or older, will be like, oh yeah, Dream Warrior was so sick because it's just like it's none of that gay stuff. It's all Freddy Krueger kicking ass and taking names, right? And I agree with that. except for like the gay stuff. I agree with the second half of that. Let me be very clear. I agree with the second half of that.
And I agree.
Yeah. I agree with the second half of that. But the problem is I think, myself included on this, is, and again, this is me taking the movie critically on its own, right? Is there are some cool diamonds in the rough in Dream Child and the fifth one, whose name escapes me. That like
the fifth one is Dream Child because the fourth one is the Dream Master.
Okay, sorry. Yes. Yeah. Dream Master and Dream Child. Yeah, like both of those movies. There are some cool little moments there that like part of me was expecting in this.
Really?
Yeah, because I was like, Dream Master sucks. Like, because I was expecting like the more iconic version of Freddy Worm, right?
Yeah.
And like because like, oh shit, I'm like, no, she isn't. Wait a second, that doesn't happen here. Like so stuff like that. Like there's just some.
I like Freddy Worm in this one.
Freddy Worm is
great in this one. Yeah.
Freddy Worm is better next time. And listen, I could be wrong. I could totally be wrong. This might be the better version of Freddy Worm. But again, I'm taking this movie as what it is, and I remember Freddy Worm being better. And Freddy Worm is really good on its own merit. And there's again, this is a movie that bleeds style. It bleeds style, but like style and substance. I want them to go together. I want a movie that's like stylistic and substance, like at the same time. Like this doesn't always have the substance, and the substance oftentimes feels very, very jammed down your throat. Go for it.
I don't even know how to properly articulate how much I disagree with that sentence.
Go for it, man.
When I was watching
opinions
this,
now.
I just kept going. I basically took the exact opposite view of everything you just said.
Yeah.
When I see the substance that's being oozed out of this, the cool factor that's emanating throughout this film, I'm so in on it.
Yeah.
And like, I'm also in on this whole story of like of these kids being put into a mental institution because like it's the 80s. We didn't exactly have a good grip on mental health at all in this country. So like the idea of them all having of the probable thing being, oh, it's just a big psychosis, a group psychosis thing, and that's like even remotely taken seriously is fascinating to me. Like that to me I think is interesting background of this film that just permeates it constantly. So like it just oozed that through line of like almost none of the adult characters we see in this actually believe them, minus of course the one counselor, I forget his name, our main Neil.
Dr. Gordon.
Yeah, Neil Gordon. What a guy! All right,
what a name.
It is a powerful name. Like it has pop to it. Yeah. He's the one guy who actually ends up believing that. And of course, Nancy, because she's experienced this before.
That's another issue I have. I will say this. Yeah, Patricia Arquette is a much better actress than Heather Langenkamp in this movie. Heather Langenkamp has done better roles, but Heather Langenkamp does not feel like she does not do a very good job in this for me. And so I think that's a problem because she did such a good job in one, and this feels like there's like so many parts where it just feels more phoned in. And I don't like it, like that. Like it's just like, man, this kind of like it's or maybe like her acting style feels out of place. I don't know.
Yeah,
like,
I'll say I didn't.
More stilted,
I didn't get
maybe?
that. I didn't get that vibe. I feel like her character feels very much like her character felt in the first movie, and maybe it's just like the directing change. Where the new characters are
that's fair.
Just pushed in a different direction, but she has held on to like the previous like character direction.
That's probably a better me saying that she didn't do well. Listen, Heather Langenkamp, I'm sorry. That's Corbin said.
It's too late.
What
I'm sending this clip straight to her. 100%.
No. Listen, I'm saying what you said was probably a better articulated version of what I was trying to say. It's like it didn't super work with me, and and again, part of this is I feel like part of it is kind of nitpicky because I want to be very clear is I didn't hate this. I was just expecting to love it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
and I didn't love it. You know what I mean?
It's so weird for me.
Yeah, I mean, so
Because
like
I loved almost everything in this entire film.
I also love
Even
this
the
movie.
continuity errors, enjoyed them.
Yeah. And like I also, and I'll go ahead and spoil the next couple of weeks, but it's hard for me to dislike any of the Nightmare movies. I even like the bad ones. Like when they go, like they just get ridiculous. And Freddy became like a rock star type character in pulp culture, and the movies changed to reflect that. And this movie was the beginning of that. You know, Nightmare had already been around for 5 or 6 years at this point. And 4 years? I don't know. I forget when the first one came out, but 85? 4 years.
No, 85 was 85 was 2.
Was it?
84 was 1.
So 84. So 5 years at this point, right? And this was really when slashers, especially, but led, I would say, by Freddy, where slashers were becoming more about the killer and less about the survivors, and that really changed the way the slashers were made and the types of movies that you got out of it, because you didn't always necessarily have as deep of films. Like it definitely became style over substance. And I don't think that Bobby's wrong for mentioning that, but I don't. It's not a problem for me. I guess is what I would say.
I guess. I don't know. I agree. I think for most people it won't be, and I fully admit this is probably more of a me problem than anything else. But like,
I think it's fair to mention though, because it's not incorrect. There was a point where slashers, like, horror is always a reflection of the society, right? And slashers were like the thing for a period of time, and for a while there, they really did a good job of reflecting current fears. If you look at like Texas Chainsaw, Halloween, even the first Friday to a degree, despite its quality.
First Friday's okay.
First Friday's okay, right? Exactly. But it flanderized itself over the years, and I think you probably only have two. I would say you have three Nightmare movies that have something to say, and the next one isn't until New Nightmare.
No, and actually, that's actually where I will give you all the credit in the world. Is this movie is still better than any single Friday the 13th movie.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Right?
So I think part of the problem is I'm holding this up against movies that are really, 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 really legitimately good, and this is just an end of the road slasher that is super fun, right?
Right. And I mean, think about it. What his peers were at this point, right? Like, what was the Friday movie at this time? Like,
I'm going
6, I think, or like
Jason Lives.
I mean, this is the best one, but this is the best one of the original 9.
So 89. So it was.
I think Jason Lives is right.
No, I think it was. I think it was
Takes Manhattan.
It might be Takes Manhattan.
No, Takes Manhattan was it not in the 90s?
I'm looking right now. 80.
Because there's no way one didn't come out alongside it.
Jason Takes Manhattan. Yeah.
It is. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, when you compare it against that, this movie is like Oscar award winning quality, right?
Oh, yeah. Amazing.
But, on the flip side, right, Candyman came out like a year later. So like there was still room in the genre, right?
That's
like
what I'm saying, man. That's what I'm saying. That's the problem I had with this.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think that there were a few hits that we got that proved that slashers still had like proper legs, but Nightmare had gotten, I think, to a point where it was like just not.
It couldn't be.
Wouldn't even attempt. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I hear you, and I think part of my problem is I have to, at the same time, and I will fully admit I tried really hard to be non-critical of this because I went into Shocker thinking, okay, I don't know what this is going to be. It's probably going to be bad, and I ended up leaving it being genius. And part of the problem is probably for me is I went in going like, it's fucking Dream Warriors, right? And then being kind of disappointed at it. I think it's just like it's just so like
I mean, and it is also like this one has a lot on its shoulders. The reputation of this movie is that it's the second best Nightmare movie. That it's the one that has all the cool stuff. I mean, Bobby's comment earlier about kind of homogenizing the Dream trilogy, I would call them. These next three, is true, and I think that's true probably for a lot of people who maybe would like to forget like the Dream Child ever existed, but there's still like two cool kills in there, so you're like, I'll remember those in a place that's much more favorable. Like I think that has some truth to it culturally, but it can be hard to go into
I'm sorry, I
movies
totally lied to
with
you.
a reputation like that.
Shocker came out in like 89, so actually it definitely came out way after this, which is why I think it is a thing. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. I was just looking right now and I'm like, oh man, I'm looking right now. Dream Child definitely came out in 89, so.
Oh yeah. This was 87. This one.
Yeah. So yeah,
and that makes more sense because obviously, like Wes Craven was not rating more than one movie at a time.
No, yeah, I do think that Wes Craven.
I would then say maybe even based on the turnaround of horror movies, and I know that he did something else. I think between these two, like
it's probably more
Shocker maybe is more towards like Dream Child, or Dream Master. Where the franchise went even after he tried to right the ship. With Part 3.
Yeah.
I have a question.
I have an answer, probably.
So we've already alluded to the idea that the shark is being jumped here.
Yeah.
And as the guy who hasn't seen any of this is my first watch for basically all of these films.
Yeah.
Without spoiling anything for me, how much are we about to jump the shark into 4? Like, we've jumped the shark. Well, no. I'm not asking in terms of quality. I'm just saying, like, is it about to get more wild than what we had here, or is I love it.
So if you've seen
that, frankly,
you've seen Freddy vs. Jason,
yeah.
So taking New Nightmare out of the equation, let's say for a second,
okay,
from this point through to Freddy vs. Jason, the ridiculousness of the franchise is a straight line. Like there is a graph that has no interruptions, where maybe like it's just getting crazier and crazier, and then New Nightmare very serious, very good, and then just crazy again. And that is kind of
unironically like all of that.
Yeah, because I mean, there's a lot to enjoy. They just aren't like they're not good films.
I know for a fact I'm gonna like Dream Child more than I thought I would. I just know that.
It's probably going to hit you all the way back on the irony scale.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know that. Right. This movie, that I think that's part of the problem. This movie's too good to hit me on the irony scale, but not good enough to be on its own merit. Like, whoa. Like,
I just can't understand that. That just throws me. You've thrown me for such a loop this episode, Bobby. Like I'm
a complicated bird,
like articulate thoughts.
I'm not that surprised because, like, I think that my years of knowing Bobby and even the years of doing the show has proven that our thoughts on this genre, especially, are very different, and we just converge very specific points. And this movie is just like totally not one of those points.
Yeah, I guess
I didn't hate it. I want to be clear. I didn't hate it. I just don't know if I loved it.
I'm rating a score down to 1 out of 5.
Bobby hated it. Bobby hated it.
Okay, so we all know that Bobby hated it, but how much did you guys hate it? On a score of 0 to 5 with half points allowed.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I'll go first, because I wasn't on last week's episode, and I think it's fair for me to, take the brunt of it. I definitely think this movie is better than the last movie. I believe I gave the last movie a 3.5. Alan probably has it up and can verify for me.
That's correct.
Okay. So this one is definitely not 5, right? It's not like, I think it's missing a few elements. It's a few like awkward like editing choices and some things that place it pretty firmly in the era. But at the same time, I mean, most of the acting is quite good, especially the lead. The music choices are all, I would say, 10 out of 10. I was vibing the whole way, which I love. And I really, really love the way that this one connects to the other one. Like, this one owns that it's the third in a franchise, and it just goes for it, right? I mean, there's really no slow parts of this movie. It has great pacing for a slasher. You know, you have like kills spread throughout. It has a big enough cast that you can kill people off without feeling it too much, but you can still have a healthy chunk of survivors. Everybody has enough of a backstory that you kind of know who they are, but you also don't really care when they get killed. And it kind of sits in this sweet spot of slashers for me, where you're checking all these boxes and the kills are, you know, really inventive, most of them at least. I would give this movie a 4.5, honestly. I love this movie. I think it's great. And I have minimal issues with this movie. I just have a good time. And I think I mentioned it at the beginning, like, I think that this movie is iconic, and I think that it is exactly what you think of Elm Street to be.
Oh, you go.
Alan, what's my score for Nightmare 2?
Your score was a 4.5.
Cool. I'm going to go ahead and just go ahead and just play the opposite with Corbin here. It's 3.5 out of 5 for me. It's very good. It is iconic. And this is, I think, if any of us, I guess, spoiler warning for the spoiler-free section. I think we all know where this is going. But I had way more problems with this movie than I even remotely expected to have. This movie is so much more style over substance. That style gives it 3 points. There's a cool bit. There's like the style alone gives it like 3 points, right? That 0.5 is some of the little bits of substance. You mentioned addiction, mental health, those issues. Like, I feel like those are way more ham-fisted than the last two movies even remotely were. When you told me, I legitimately, I know a lot of things about stuff. When you told me this was written by Wes Craven, I'm honestly a bit disappointed with the writing in that regard, which kind of sucks. I'm not gonna be disrespectful to the dead in that regard, but you know, sorry, Wes. But like, there are problems with this movie, and I don't think how cool it is, nor how iconic it is, saves it enough as what Corbin says. But I do respect that me and him are coming at slashers from two different angles, so 3.5 out of 5 for me.
I gave Nightmare 2 a 4. I decidedly liked this movie more. Now the real question is, what did I give a Nightmare on Elm Street? I gave that a 4.5. I was the only non-5 on the show for that one.
Put yourself in an interesting position for this movie.
I really did, because I like this more than Nightmare 1. Straight up. Unironically, 100%. This is what I think of when I think.
This is what tears the podcast apart. That comment,
of course.
That's it.
That's the one. I mean, I've said much more heinous things.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, come on. I've had way
A Nightmare on Elm Street. The original Nightmare on Elm Street is beyond reproach. I don't give a fuck what anybody says.
It's a 4.5. I've said what I said.
I'm coming up to Indiana and I'm beating your ass.
Coming down to Indiana, bud. If you went up, you'd go to Wisconsin. All right.
I think it's just sideways. Actually,
better state. Cheese.
Yeah, cheese is good. Yeah.
The Dells are. I can't fight the Dells.
Porn and guns.
We have that here.
But not on as many exits, and you know it.
Fair.
This is all an aside. I'm in an awkward position because I can't give Dream Warriors a 5. It's not a 5. It's just not. But I do like it more. So if that's stupid, I wish I could go higher than a 4.5, but not a 5. So by default, it's a 4.5 out of 5. This film had everything I wanted a Nightmare on Elm Street to be. Every single time ever in life that I've thought, well, what is a Nightmare on Elm Street? It's this. It's this pure, ridiculous romp of Freddy doing the most ridiculous things he can and truly using the dream aspect of this film much better than either of the previous two, in my opinion. The first one barely does anything with it. The second one it's a possession film. We've been over this. It plays more with the real world, which is cool in its own right. But this is a movie where he kills people in their dreams in ridiculous ways. When the Dream Warriors come out to play, okay? It's just exactly what I wanted. 4.5.
And just imagine, for the price of a dream, we could have had 3 to 4 good, grounded Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Instead, we got 8 to 9, where 2 of them were super cool and grounded. Imagine.
I'm sorry about it.
But hey, that's not all we do on this Horror Movie Podcast. We also decided the obvious question is A Nightmare on Elm Street, The Dream Warriors, essential to horror as well. Yeah. Now, of course, dear listener, this is spoiler-free. Alan and Corbin gave the obvious answer of a 4.5 out of 5, and I, the shining beacon on the hill, gave this movie a 3.5 out of 5. I'll go first.
I await your episode 100 adjustment on this movie.
I
bumped that all the way up to 4.
I promise you. I promise you, it's sticking here. I'm fine with it. But this movie is essential. Of course, it is. It's the fucking Dream Warriors, right? It does not matter if you listen to the spoiler cast. You know, I honestly would expect to like this movie a lot more than I did, but it's still the Dream Warriors, right? It still has iconic scenes that I cannot say because they're technically spoilers. It's got Freddy at his most Freddy in hindsight. And you know, it's the Dream Warriors, baby. You know, it's great. It's like I gave it a 3.5. But that style is that's styling, baby. 3.5 out of 5, and an absolute yes essential from Bibu.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll go next, and I totally agree. I mean, this one has to be yes for so many reasons, and maybe the least of which is that it gave us the version of Freddy that really locked in his reputation in pop culture. You know, like when you see Freddy Krueger pop up in like Family Guy or The Simpsons or something, or, you know, when they do a Nightmare on Elm Street bit in Robot Chicken, you know, like it's Dream Warriors era of Freddy, you know, like that's really the version of Freddy that permeated, you know, and
he's saying bitch every third word, like
right, like like, you know, Dream Warriors is it's basically like the cultural zeitgeist of what Nightmare became. It really started with Dream Warriors, right? Like this is really the one that like launched Freddy into a different world, and you know, he held a position in pop culture that was very different from Michael and Jason, and I think a lot of it is because of Dream Warriors. And so kind of like, you know, I gave it a 4.5, so I stand by the quality, but even if I gave it a 1, you know, this movie just it just is a yes because of what it did for for late 80s slashers. So absolutely yes, essential.
I mean, what do you want from me? You want me to have a diatribe? You want me to try and wax poetically to then say, oh yeah, of course it's fucking essential.
I did want you to wax poetically, for the record.
I didn't have. Look, I do enjoy.
Alan can't do that bit as well as I can. Okay.
Yeah. No, man, I had my moments. I had some good ones.
Alan's holding all his wax inside for when we get to the Dream Child and he has to break it to Bobby that maybe this is his favorite Nightmare movie.
Dude, if we continue to jump the shark as much as we are going
what
to,
if we have to break it to each other?
Nightmare?
It's like, oh, this is so dog shit. I loved every second of it.
That'll be the one that finally gets to the Hall of Fame, Dream Child.
Oh my god! I'm gonna predict next week's. Next week is Dream Child, right?
No, next week is Dream Master.
Okay, so Dream Child. This is the one bit I do know is that it's apparently awful, terrible film, very unliked by everybody. I'm gonna predict that that's gonna be a conversation where we just all go, I don't understand. This movie fucking rocks. It's terrible. It's essential. Like, I'm predicting low scores, all essential. I'm just putting it out there right now.
You heard it here first. Alan really loves the Curse of Thorns subplot in the Michael Myers movies. Big
I
fan
do
of
love
it.
the Curse of Thorns subplot in Michael
I
Myers
haven't
movies.
seen it. Maybe I do. But of course, Dream Warriors is essential. Of course it is. So speaking of objectively correct opinions, like a 4.5 out of 5 for this film, what are your handles? What you guys been up to? Where can we find you? Bobby?
I can't answer that question. I don't think it's an objectively correct opinion. But you can find me at twitch.tv/theredweenie, where all my relevant socials are there. What have I been up to since the last time you saw me? I've been playing, I played Destiny. Easter happened, so I went out with my family for Easter.
Hashtag he is arisen.
Yeah,
Yup.
praise be. I don't know if I'm doing much besides that. No, probably not. No, honestly, busy life. So yeah, that's it. Twitch.tv/threadmini. When Diablo 4 comes out, you'll probably see me stream on there a lot. But before then, we'll see what happens.
I'm
late for D&D.
Yeah, true. This is a long 2 months. This countdown, man, I cannot wait. June June 2nd for those of us that are getting the deluxe, and I am pumped. You can find me on Twitter at Corbangarang, or on Twitter and Mastodon at Bolters_bourbon, where I talk about Warhammer. What have I been up to in the last 2 weeks? Mostly Warhammer stuff, So we had a big get together with our local Warhammer group, where we quote unquote finished up a tournament, which is pretty cool. I've been working on my Cruel Boys and my Horus Heresy army, which is going to be Dark Angels. Our local GW is doing a Horus Heresy escalation league, which I'm very, very excited for. And it's coming at the perfect time for our very sloppy heresy. Huh?
You say our as if you, me, and anyone don't have 3 separate games workshops that we go to.
Well, and yet there's one that's holding a Horus Heresy league.
That's true. That is true.
So that's really, what I've been up to. I haven't really been gaming a whole lot. Destiny is the one thing that I've been kind of keeping up with. Finished the seasonal story, which was fine. It's over now, so if anybody, you can knock it out in no time. But that's about it. Easter and work has really been, taking up a lot of time. So follow me at Corbangarang, at Bolters_bourbon, and let's chat. Let's talk.
You can find me at A Seal Punter just about anywhere, where I am also working on my Horus Heresy army. I've got my one painted Alpha Legion dude right here. I will, just by sheer coincidence, I actually am going to be up for that first week of the escalation. So I have now had to shift my hobbying efforts purely to getting the Alpha Legion up and running, because I had not really planned on getting them rolling at all. So I'm working on getting them all painted up myself, because I need to learn how to play this format of the game, and this is the perfect way to do it. So looking forward to that. Other than that, it's disc golf season, baby. We're gonna be out there on Thursday. It's gonna be like 78 degrees, perfect. Sun doesn't set till 8:30 down here by me, so we got plenty of the day to go out there and throw them plastic discs. Grand old time. Really looking forward to actually getting back out there in all seriousness, because it's been a long winter and I have not played almost at all. So I need to get it back out there, get moving, and whatnot. So yeah, a Seal Punter, just about anywhere.
Nice.
Where can you follow the podcast, Gordon?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's a question that I have the answer to. So you can find the podcast at Essential Scarce. If you're on a platform and you'd like to follow the podcast, search for us. And if we don't come up, we're not on that platform. We like to talk about horror, and in the bios for all of our socials is a link to our Discord, where we talk about all sorts of things, including horror, of course, but including also video games, music, movies, and other things. If you ever would like to chat with us, we're on Discord pretty much every day. And, we'd love to take recommendations for future franchises or movies to cover. We are going to be wrapping up Nightmare on Elm Street just in time for our episode 100 spectacular, and we are looking for suggestions for where to go after that. So if you have something you'd like to see us cover, shoot us a note. But in the meantime, that's it for this week. Thank you so much for listening or watching, whatever your preferred medium is. If you liked the show, give us a rating, a review, a subscribe, a thumbs up, share it with your friends, share it with your family. And, don't forget that next week we're watching The Dream Master, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4. Will it get better? Will it get worse? We're going to find out together. Bobby and I have seen it before, but it's been a while. And it's new for Alan. So I'm personally very excited for next week. But follow us in the meantime, and thank you so much. Thank you to Alan and Bobby for being on the show with me this week. And thanks so much for hosting and doing an episode without me last week. I didn't listen to it, and I didn't watch the movie, but I know you did a good job because I know you guys.
It did numbers.
It did numbers.
It did do pretty numbers.
There you go. Yeah, this has been Essential Scares, and I've been your host, Corbin. Thanks so much.
Play that Dream Warriors, baby.